Hello, I'm Andrew Urban from my Urban Home team in Keller Williams Realty. And so you've done it. Finally, you've won the bidding for a house. And so that's great news. The next thing you need to do is we need to think about getting a home inspection. And the home inspection is an important element because it gives you a baseline of what's the matter with the house or what's good with the house. Sometimes the listing agent will provide a home inspection, but sometimes not. So the thing to consider is, why don't I look through the house myself and I'll check things out? Well, I'm not a licensed home inspector, and so that's not the right answer. And then what about if I get a contractor friend to look through the house? And again, that might be okay, but it's not really the right answer either. So the reason why you want that to be a licensed home inspector is because then you can use that report as ammunition in your negotiations. So a licensed person knows what to look at, and a licensed person has the reputation to be able to give good recommendations. So let's see some of the things that a home inspector should be looking at in this house. So a home inspector is going to be the kind of person that's going to look at all the electrical, all the mechanical, and the plumbing systems in the house. And so you need some specialized knowledge for that. Here, you would start with the electrical stuff. This is the main panel, and typically they take this cover off and they look behind it. There's also a sub-panel, which we'll see in a moment. So this is where the sub-panel is in the house. It's usually in a closet. It's usually inside the garage, maybe. In this case, it's inside the laundry room. And again, they would take the cover off. They would check how things are written out and give us a good answer on what's going on there. Okay, continuing with the mechanical and heating part of the inspection, the inspector would be looking at all these things. They would take apart this furnace and have a look inside it. They would examine this hot water heater. They would make sure that the hot water heater is properly strapped and earthquake strapped up against the wall and that kind of thing. So these are all important elements that make sure that the house is in good condition for when you decide when you take over. So just like with all the other mechanical elements of the house, it's all about being safe and making sure that the house is not about to burn down for some reason once we start using it. In the kitchen, the inspector will look at all the appliances. They'll run the dishwasher, they'll use the stove, they'll run the microwave, they'll use the hood. They even use the garbage disposal to make sure that that's working. And they make sure that the air gap doesn't have water coming out of it. So it's all about safety so that when you start using the systems, you know that they're either working or not. So that's the whole point. So when we're in the main part of the house, the inspector is also going to be looking at the windows and doors. They'll want to make sure that all the windows close properly and latch properly. They'll look at the doors to make sure that the doors open freely. They'll make sure that they may examine the opaqueness of this dual pane window to see what's the matter with that and make some comment about that. They'll look at all the outlets to make sure that the outlets are properly grounded. And as they go through the house, they also would examine a fireplace. And they might even look up the flue to see that the damper is working and generally make sure that these mechanical systems are actually operating properly. And if they're not, then you normally recommend someone to come along and examine it more closely. That's more of an expert, let's say, in a fireplace area. So in the bathrooms, this happens to be the master bathroom, but every bathroom is kind of the same thing. You're looking to see if everything works, if the hot and cold are in the right area, if the water's coming out nice and quickly. Are there any leaks under the sink? Do the drawers open and close properly? Is there any issue with the caulking around the sinks? And then when you're looking at the shower, is there any? How do these things look? Do all the doors open and close properly? Is those kinds of things that a normal homeowner might not consider? Those are the things that an inspector, a licensed home inspector, looks at carefully and makes recommendations about. Is there any leaking in the shower valves? It gets to be very complicated, and it gets to be very nitpicky. So remember that when you're looking at a home inspection, the home inspector is your eyes and ears, and he's the total nitpicker of anything that's not quite right. And when you're the buyer, that's really what you want. You want to know exactly what's the problem. So then, last but not least, you're also looking at the foundation of the home. This home is built on a slab foundation, so you can't get underneath it. But slab foundations also sometimes have movements. And here's a good example of what a home inspector would look at and make recommendations about. So here you can see some cracks in the walls, and if you go to the corner of the wall to the ceiling, you can see that there's some apparent movement up there. And we might ask the home inspector, okay, what's the cause of that? We might ask the home inspector, should we be concerned about that? And those are the benefits that we would get from such an inspection. And finally, actually, the thing, of course, we're also looking at is the roof. And the home inspector normally does not climb on the roof. Sometimes they use a drone to look at the roof. But a roof inspector would be the right person to give you a good recommendation about how the benefits of the roof at the moment. So those are the things about a home inspection that I would recommend we always engage in a licensed home inspector. I'm Andrew Urban. I'm the numbers nerd. I'm the nitpicker that helps you figure out whether you made a good purchase. If you're looking for a home inspector, contact me. I know quite a few. Thank you.